Welcome to The Price of Civilization, the podcast that uncomplicates the tax code and explores how the money we pay shapes the world we live in. I'm Pietro Canestrelli. I have been a tax attorney for over 27 years, first working for the IRS and for the last 20 years defending taxpayers from paying more taxes than they legally owe. Let's dive into today's episode. All right. And now we're back with a new episode of The Price of Civilization. And my special guest for today is someone that every business owner needs. It is, and I'll let her introduce herself, Laura Bender.
Hi there, and thank you so much for having me. So yes, my name is Laura Bender. I am a CPA. And I own ProBalance Books, which is a bookkeeping company. And we work with small businesses to ensure that they have accurate and timely bookkeeping. And that enables them to make their strategic business decisions based on the reliable financial information that we can provide. So I've been in the accounting industry for over 25 years now, and just love what I do.
So bookkeeping is so important. Laura, you didn't sell it hard enough. Tell us why bookkeeping for small businesses, growing businesses, what that means to not have bookkeeping versus to have a great professional like you doing their bookkeeping.
Yeah, well, I actually always say that bookkeeping is the building block of a healthy business. Yes. And what I really mean by that is that it's the foundation. And every business owner really should know their numbers. It's very important for business owners to know their numbers in order to get to where they want to go. So most business owners, even if they don't have a formal budget in place, most business owners have some kind of an idea of maybe a revenue number that they're trying to hit or a profit that they're trying to hit, a profit margin maybe. And so bookkeeping can give them the data of where they've been, and then they can use that data to really make decisions and pivot and, look at a variance report to see what they need to change to get to where they really want to go. Right. So it's so much more than data entry, which is a part of it. Yeah. You have to categorize things and you have to put things where they need to go. But what bookkeeping really does when it's done well and it's done timely is that it gives business owners the ability to understand the story that their financials are really telling them. And when I say timely, I mean, I'm doing like 3 cleanups right now for, 2025 books for people who just hadn't done it. And that's great that they need to get it done now for their taxes and all of that. But they're missing the ability to look at those financials timely and then make those decisions. Because once the time has passed, then, you've lost the ability to make those changes in real time.
Right. The way I heard it described one time is you wouldn't fly an airplane with instruments. And
exactly.
if you don't have bookkeeping, you're flying your business without instruments. And
exactly.
Financial literacy starts with bookkeeping, right?
Absolutely.
So, let's talk to that person who has never gotten had a professional bookkeeper. Maybe they've tried to keep in accounts, but tell us from the basic services what you need and what you provide, to your clients on a monthly basis, annual basis, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, they need to know that they're not alone, because I see this all the time, is that people have tried to DIY it themselves for too long, or they've been so busy running their business that the books have kind of fallen to the back burner, and they just, they haven't been able to keep up. So first of all, no judgment. And the best thing to do is, get caught up and then stay caught up. And so what I can provide is really the compliance bookkeeping, which is, categorizing all of your transactions, reconciling all your accounts. That's a big one that a lot of people miss, is they don't actually do the reconciliation of their bank accounts and their credit cards and their loans. Because when you're not reconciling, you could potentially be having errors in your books that you're not catching.
Right.
Sometimes QuickBooks will, they have a bank connection coming through, but every now and then, the bank will do an update of some sort and the connection will break. And then that means that transactions are missed. And if you're not reconciling to the statement every month, then you're not catching those. So it's really important to do that. So we do that every month. And then we provide our clients with a financial statement packet. And so at a minimum for compliance bookkeeping, they're getting a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement. And then we also offer advisory services for clients who are looking to scale and want a little bit more support. And so they get more comprehensive reporting. They get, if they have a budget, they get a budget variance report. We talked about those targets that they might have earlier. So I take what their targets are and I put those into a KPI report tracker. And so it will give them those numbers, graphs, metrics, everything that they need to really understand where they're at. And then we can also offer, cash flow projections and help with the budget and those kinds of things as well.
Awesome. Now, I have to tell you, and doing 27 years of tax controversy, tax defense work, if you don't have proper bookkeeping and you get audited, it is infinitely more difficult to defend this person.
Absolutely.
You have to basically recreate the books, and the IRS will recreate them for you, and make sure you don't get any deductions or deny all the deductions. Make sure that everything that is a deposit in your bank account is treated as taxable income, which is,
oh wow,
there could be transfers. Yeah, the IRS does something called the bank deposit method to verify income, and they take your bank statements. And some people might be thinking, well, I'm not going to give up my bank statements, but guess what? The IRS could go to your bank and say, give us their bank statements. The bank is legally obligated to give it to them. And they will, look at your balance on day one of the year. They will add up all your deposits, and they will say, that is your income. And guess what? Wow. It looks like you underreported it by, 20%, 30%. Now, not every deposit is income, taxable income.
Absolutely not. A lot of times people have loans or transfers or all kinds of things. Yeah.
And if you had books, the IRS is usually going to accept your bookkeeping from a professional bookkeeper that was created contemporaneously with, they may look, if you hire somebody, and it's a good idea to hire somebody to do your bookkeeping if you get audited and never had bookkeeping, but the IRS will probably look at that bookkeeping very strictly, very, very.
They're going to scrutinize it.
Right. They're very scrutinized that. If you have contemporaneous books, they're usually going to accept that. That now they may argue about personal versus business expenses, that sort of thing, but they're not going to just say, you didn't substantiate any of your deductions, which they will if you don't have bookkeeping.
Absolutely.
I've seen it, I'm going to say hundreds of times at this point, because most audits, about 75% of audits are really a substantiation thing.
Sure.
It's substantiation that your business, you actually paid for something. That's the threshold. Bookkeeping really helps with that. You actually paid for something that is related to the business. Again, bookkeeping really helps with that. And
Absolutely.
then lastly, we get down to the legal question, is this necessary and ordinary business expense? That's where I come in to argue.
Absolutely.
But having it categorized as a business expense initially, at least you have proof that you spent money on something and it's tentatively for the business.
Yeah.
Yes. Bookkeeping, super duper expensive. Mm-hmm. So Laura, 25 years in the accounting field, and you've had your business, I do believe, about 5 years plus at this point.
Actually, it's only been 3 years.
Oh, 3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. I love the journey It really
Yeah.
is. A person's story is the person more than the person sometimes.
Right. Absolutely. So yeah, bookkeeping and well, accounting just came very naturally to me, really. I took an accounting class in college. I really enjoyed it. Took another one and just kind of kept going. Ended up graduating with a bachelor's of accountancy and then started working in the accounting industry right away, getting hands-on experience.
What was your first job?
My first job was actually as well, this is kind of funny. So my very first job in high school, okay, was at a large homeowners association. It was actually the largest homeowners association in the country. It kind of looked more like a country club where there was a lake and snack bars and boat rentals and that kind of thing. And I worked in the snack bar. And I worked there for, summers during high school. And then I moved up to the sales office where I worked there and just really kind of loved the company and the people and everything. And when I graduated, there happened to be an opening in their accounting department.
Wow.
And so that is the job that I got right away. And
so
I just was fortunate.
When you were in college, you were already in accounting before you even got a degree or anything.
Well, I didn't actually get that job until I graduated with my degree from college, but just had worked for that company for so many years. And so ended up just kind of sliding into that role. And I was with that company for actually 15 years and grew into the controller role there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that was where I spent a lot of my time.
Really quick. Tell people what a controller does versus an accountant.
Right. So there's different steps in accounting, so what the controller is really doing is not so much the day-to-day. So like the day-to-day, you've got your people who are doing your accounts payable and accounts receivable. Those are kind of the basic functions in accounting. And then you have people that are doing like the general ledger coding things. And then the controller is really overseeing the whole financial kind of function of the business. And so I was doing more like, meeting with the board of directors and meeting with, the general manager and doing, budgeting and forecasting and cash flow projections and those kinds of things, which really kind of like is nice now that when I do the advisory services is that I have that background. So that, having spent most of my career in like a controller type role is really the advisory service piece that I offer my clients now. And it's nice to be able to offer that to the small business owners who, they can't afford to have, an in-house controller, but they, can get that same advisory service on a smaller scale by outsourcing it to a company like mine.
So Laura's being modest, but a controller is really a person who not only inputs all the numbers, but understands them and understands how to apply them to your particular business to help you grow. So having someone with controller experience, CFO experience under their belt is a much different, much superior service than someone who's, kind of just done bookkeeping and accounting most of their career. So you're a controller at the HOA, and then what happened?
Then I decided that so that was a great job, and I passed my CPA test when I was there, but I did not have any ability to do any auditing hours when I was at that job, which you need to actually earn your CPA license.
Okay.
And so at that point, I decided that I needed to pivot to a public accounting firm to get a little bit more of a different experience. So I did that, and I did auditing. I did some tax work, and we actually did some bookkeeping for clients.
What size firm did you join after the HOA or firms?
It was actually a firm in Murrieta. It was not huge, but it was a public accounting firm that did auditing of mostly school districts and nonprofits.
Okay.
And HOAs, which I had the HOA experience. So I did some of the school districts, and I did a lot of the HOAs, or I did all of the HOAs and a lot of the nonprofit auditing while I was there.
Okay.
So that was a great experience, but most people don't go into public accounting and stay there. Most people that become a CPA, they go into public accounting and then they get out.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Right.
I had, relatively young children at the time, and there's a lot of travel involved with auditing, which, is not great for a mom with young kids. And so I enjoyed my time there and I learned a lot, but it wasn't a great long-term job for me. And so I left there and I went to another company where I was a controller again.
Okay.
And that's where I was until I decided to go out on my own and start my own business.
So I'm always a lot of things, but and I have to stop repeating that. Anyway, but I always like when somebody steps out and becomes their own business owner. To me, that is a act of bravery, and it really is motivated by, most people think business owners and owners are motivated by greed, but it really is to build the better mousetrap, to give the better service. They've worked for people. They might like how most of the stuff, how it's done at the place they work, but they always think they could do better. They could make people's lives better. So but it takes a lot of bravery because you are rolling the dice on yourself. You are saying,
absolutely, I
could, not only could I do better, but I think I could find clients to do that. So tell us about you've had enormous growth in the last 3 years. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, well, I started the business because I did see an opportunity and a need. Basically, one of my favorite things to do is to really explain the financial statements to, whether it's the business owner or whoever is, needing to have that piece of information. And so, especially relating the balance sheet to the profit and loss and why they need to read both of them. Everybody loves a profit and loss statement. Everybody loves to look at their revenue and their expenses and their profit. And most people can kind of figure that out. But the balance sheet is the one that people always kind of ignore because it confuses them. Mm-hmm. And so one of my favorite things to do is to really explain to them, why they need to look at both of them together. Right. And especially when it comes, I get this question all the time, why is my profit X, but I don't have that much money in my checking account? You get that all the time. Right. And so explaining to the business owners that, your profit is, simply your revenue less your expenses. This is your profit. But let's look at your balance sheet too, and really look at the health of your business. And let's look at what is coming out of your checking account that is not even touching your profit and loss statement. Maybe you have a loan for a vehicle or a loan for equipment. Right. Maybe you're an S Corp and you're taking owner's distributions. Right. Maybe you bought something else. There's all kinds of reasons. Or even if you're on accrual accounting and you're, booking accounts receivable and you haven't collected yet, that's going to inflate your income, but the money's not going to be in your account yet. So what I've found is that really educating my clients on how they can use these financial statements that they're getting every month and really understanding them and using them, that's really helped because then they're telling their friends, their other business owners that they need this service too. And so the referrals have really been how I've grown my business, just by educating my clients. And being a business owner now myself, like you talked about, that's really changed perspective too, I think, is that I can relate to them on a different level. So yes, I am a small business owner. So I understand what it means to juggle everything and to wear all the hats and, do the marketing and do the admin stuff and do the production, and so I can relate and I can understand what they might need and what might help to take off their plate.
Awesome. Yes. My wife, Kristen, the first thing we did on our last 5 years of growth was fire herself as bookkeeper and get a bookkeeper, which they bring expertise and instead of doing something that you don't quite know how to do and you're
Right.
miserable doing it, fire yourself in that role and hire
Absolutely.
Laura. Now, the other thing I want to point out is something you brought up is, with financial literacy, it's like literacy of any language. If you learn to speak Spanish or French or something like that, you're going to start off with the basic, hola,
Right.
The basic phrases, and you're going to learn that and get comfortable. But there is a whole world of financial literacy at more sophisticated. You mentioned cash flow
Yes.
forecast and
Yes.
what that means. If you're growing and your cash, well, I'll let you explain it. What is a cash flow forecast and how can it be used in a growing business?
Yeah. So I do offer cash flow projections for my advisory clients. Mm-hmm. And so what that is it's a spreadsheet, and it shows their projected cash inflows, their projected cash outflows by category. So we have kind of like the big categories that they're spending things on. And then it's formula to then say what should be left over. And then we project out, 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what they're looking for. And my clients that are on this service actually get this weekly cash flow report, not monthly. They get it weekly so that they can really understand what, maybe when should they make that, credit card payment, or when should they look at, wanting to bring on, a new team member maybe. Right. Or, maybe do we want to put some more advertising dollars into, next month's budget because we saw an increase in revenue when we did that last quarter, and really just kind of understanding when you make changes to the expenses, what does that do to the revenue top line?
Yeah, and it's a projected fuel gauge. I mean, going back to the airplane, if you're an airplane and you want to fly 500 miles, that's the trip till you land. Your fuel gauge, and you will have an instrument that combines your fuel and how fast you're going and your burn rate on your fuel, and you'll know whether you could make 500 miles or not, right?
Absolutely.
And you don't want to run out of money.
Exactly.
You want to see that situation coming in, and just like the airplane, if I throttle back on my speed, I will make the 500 miles because I'm burning the fuel at a lower rate. So
exactly.
So important, and it goes on and on the financial numbers. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit, and it's a natural for taxes. We've already talked about some of the issues that a bookkeeper is. What type of tax issues do you see coming up when you onboard a new client, or I guess just what are some of the tax issues you see as a bookkeeper?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest ones probably is just being surprised by their tax liability, right. And just trying to have them understand that setting aside money on a monthly basis or quarterly estimated payments is something that they really should be talking to their tax professional about, and coming up with a plan for how much they should be setting aside. And again, that's one of those things, that they open a savings account then to set some tax money aside. That's another item that can affect their cash flow, obviously, that they're setting that money aside. But it's so important that they do that so that they're not surprised at tax time with a large tax bill. And so for me, I can obviously categorize it in that way and make a recommendation that they talk to their tax professional, since I don't give tax advice. So I love having, people like yourself I can refer to so that they can get that guidance that they need.
Right. So we do something I call proactive tax planning. And that is not the typical reactive. You're getting ready to file your returns at the beginning of the year for last year's return, and you see the potential tax bill, and you scramble, and you ask your preparer, what can we do? And not a lot you can do at that point. You're very limited. With proactive tax planning, and it starts with bookkeeping, you have to have good bookkeeping. We could actually not only put strategies in place that save you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes,
Yeah.
but we could also look at your cash flow, because just making deposits during the year so you don't have that late payment penalty could save you tens of thousands of dollars.
Sure.
Also, some strategies, tax strategies, are kind of buy-in. You have to spend money to save these taxes. And again, that's when the cash flow projection forecast comes into play, and you need good bookkeeping to know that, oh, I am going to have money to invest in this tax strategy before the end of the year. Because it's either invest in something or give the money to the IRS. You rather invest in something because you won't actually own that. When you give your money to the IRS, the government does provide services, I guess. And this is a trap that new business owners almost always fall into, because they are so used to the system that the vast majority of people live in, that your employer is actually works for the IRS in a way. They take money, they make sure the money comes out of your paycheck to pay your employment taxes and your income taxes. And they turn that over, or they're supposed to turn that over to the IRS. That's a different issue. But so you're used to that. You're used to tax time. Yeah, it's kind of a pain to file your taxes, but you usually get a refund, or you owe a little bit. When you're a business owner, you don't have that safety net, so to speak. You don't have that accountability built in. You have to structure that within your business. And again, good bookkeeping will let you know how much you should be making on that quarterly payment, what your projected tax liability is for next year. You don't want it to be a surprise. You don't want that stress of a tax liability you can't afford, in April, and you're pulling your hair out. You don't want that. So again, hire Laura, because she will make sure that you're on the way to avoiding that trap for new business owners. So what other tax advice would you give new or growing business owners?
Yeah, well, and again, and I don't give any tax advice, but what I would tell them, though,
things to look out for.
Exactly. So especially with new business, I do work with a lot of new businesses, and a lot of businesses today, they have, home offices. And so, or maybe they're using, their personal vehicle to, do some business travel and whatnot. So really figuring out what, we don't want to ever mix personal and business expenses. And that's always a thing to talk to new business owners about as well. But figuring out, when you are using part of your home or you are using your vehicle, what can we legitimately deduct as a business expense for that to help with the tax savings, help with the tax liability, to reduce that for them, but still be in compliance. And so that's an area that I always recommend that they get an opinion from their tax professional on as well. And then also, once they've been in business for a little while, if they've decided that they're going to be an S corp, then they've got to be on payroll. And so that's another issue, is that a lot of times they're wanting to take distributions, which is great, but they also need to understand that they need to be on payroll. And then coming up with what that reasonable compensation is going to be is always something that I recommend that they talk to their tax professional about as well, because we want to make sure that they're taking that reasonable salary so that, they're in compliance.
I would even go farther, and I would say your mindset should always be, you are not your business and your business is not you. Okay. Too many people think I'm my business, and I thought this way, and I'm a tax attorney. When I started out on my own 10 plus years ago, I thought I was the business and the business is me. It's not true. I mean, for tax purposes and accounting purposes, it's just simply not true. And
Right.
for business growth purposes, it's important to get that out of your mind and know that your
Absolutely.
business is a separate thing and your business serves you. You don't serve your business. You may be an employee, but you are mainly the owner, and the business is there to serve you, and it's a separate thing from you.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to confuse new business owners, but I do want to emphasize that there are a lot of people that are going to help you in the financial world, and they all have their slice of the pie of helping you. Laura's absolutely right. Good bookkeeping is the foundation of all sorts of other things you can do. A good preparer, CPA, is someone who is going to take that good bookkeeping and prepare an accurate return from what happened in the previous year. A good tax attorney, tax planner is going to strategize with you during this year, again, using bookkeeping to figure out the best ways to mitigate the amount of taxes you pay for. And you mentioned a payroll person, okay, a payroll service is going to be the person that when you have employees and you're an S corporation and you're an employee yourself, that's the person is going to make sure that your payroll taxes are going to get filed and paid for timely, so you don't hit penalties and all of that. A financial advisor is usually going to look at your personal income and expenses and assets and get ready for your retirement. And again, a tax attorney and other attorneys are going to be there for succession planning. Are you going to transfer it to the next generation? Do you plan on selling your business? And you might be, well, I just started my business 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not thinking about selling it. I don't want to sell it. I'm just starting it. But now is the time to start planning to sell or transfer or whatever you want to do, because there are so many more options if you plan ahead, if you have a 3-year plan, if you have a 5-year plan. You could structure things to really, really mitigate the tax hit from when that actually comes. And all of these team members, they're working for your team. They're probably not your employees. You're not that big enough, but they all have their important role to play. And
It's so true.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and I would look out a little bit for someone who says they could do everything. I'm not a bookkeeper. I would never do bookkeeping. My firm would never do bookkeeping. We don't prepare taxes either. We're not financial advisors. I'm a tax attorney and I focus on that. Or you're a bookkeeper, you focus on that. You already said like 4 times you don't give tax advice. So not everybody has the skills at that level you need to give you this service. So you do need a team.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think most small business owners really can benefit from having a partnership of that financial team. And just like you said, we all play a different role and we can all work together to really make the business owner reach whatever goals that they're trying to reach. And it does take a team of people to help with that. So that was so well said.
That is a great place to stop. And I want to thank Laura Bender once again from ProBalance Books, Inc. for being my guest today. This has been an awesome episode. I really appreciate her input. And Laura, how do people get in touch with you if they want to talk about, hiring you to use your services?
The best way is through the website. The website is probalancedbooks.com. And they can find all the information on there to book a discovery call, and that would be great.
So if you're a business owner who doesn't do any bookkeeping or is trying to DIY it, I strongly recommend you reach out to Laura today. and let her know. Her link, her website link will be in the comments below, so you could just click on that, get a consultation, sign up, and really start having that instrument panel for your business. So until next time, this is The Price of Civilization, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you for tuning in today's episode. If today's conversation sparked new ideas about tax strategy, or if you have a tax issue, please comment below or click the link to set up a conference with my team. Please tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.